Have you ever wondered why you remain trapped in a relationship that hurts you? You know you're unhappy. You know this relationship drains your energy. You know the other person will never change. And yet, you stay. You've tried to leave. You've promised yourself that this time would be different. But something always pulls you back. Why? What makes even the suffering not enough to make you leave? The answer isn't in the other person. It's not because they manipulated you so well that you lost the ability to make decisions. It's not because you love them so much that you can't leave. It's not because things were good once and might be good again. The truth is that the problem lies in what this relationship has awakened in you, what it has reinforced, what it has activated. Toxic relationships aren't just about fights, lies, and manipulation. They're about unconscious patterns, about old wounds that never healed, about the fear of being alone, about the need for validation, about the vicious cycle of confusion and hope. You're not trapped by the person. You're trapped by what this relationship makes you feel. And that's exactly why ending it is not enough. You might even manage to distance yourself physically, but something inside you keeps coming back, reminding you of the good moments, justifying the bad ones, wondering if you should try one more time. Because the problem has never been just the relationship. The problem is the psychological bond that was created, a bond so powerful that it alters your perception, making you accept things you once swore you would never tolerate. But enough is enough. This video isn't meant to make you feel guilty. It's not to say that you're weak or lack willpower. On the contrary, this video is to help you understand what's really happening, to give you clarity. Because when you understand, you regain control. And it's only with control that you can truly leave. So pay attention. If any part of you feels trapped, unable to leave even though you know you should, this video is for you. By the end, you'll understand exactly why this cycle repeats itself. And more importantly, you'll know how to break it. Let's get started. Why do some people seem to repeatedly fall into toxic relationships while others manage to walk away without looking back? The answer lies in how we learn to love. Love is not something that simply happens. It is shaped, built, conditioned. And to understand why you feel so attached to someone who hurts you, we need to talk about something essential: attachment. From the moment we're born, we seek connection. In our early years of life, our brains are programmed to associate safety and well-being with how we receive affection. If we grow up in an environment where love and care are always available in a healthy way, we learn that relationships are safe and trustworthy. But if affection comes mixed with coldness, rejection, inconsistency, or even abuse, our minds learn something else: that love is unstable, unpredictable, something we have to fight to deserve. And there lies the problem. If you grew up in an environment where love and pain went hand in hand, your mind internalized this dynamic. This means that when you meet someone who treats you well all the time, it may seem boring, artificial, even false. But when you encounter someone who gives you affection in controlled doses, who one day makes you feel loved and the next ignores you, your brain recognizes this pattern. It associates this cycle of uncertainty with what it learned to call love. This is the danger of the emotional trap. You're not just in love with the person. You're attached to what they represent for you. They awaken something old within you, a familiar feeling, an unconscious desire to prove that this time you will be enough, that this time love will win, that this rejection will turn into acceptance. And this leads us to one of the biggest reasons why it's so difficult to leave a toxic relationship: the fear of loss. When your attachment has been built on uncertainty, the idea of losing that person becomes unbearable, not because you can't live without them, but because you feel you need to resolve this story, that you need to prove you can make it work, that you need in some way to convince this person to give you what you've always wanted. But here's the truth: you don't need to prove anything to anyone. This relationship is not a test of your ability to be loved. The problem is not with you, and the solution is not with the other person either. The first step to getting out of this trap is to see what is happening. And this brings us to the next point. If emotional attachment creates this trap, what exactly keeps you stuck in it? There's a psychological mechanism that acts like an addiction and makes the suffering within this relationship seem, in some way, rewarding. This mechanism is called intermittent reinforcement, and understanding how it works may be the key to breaking this cycle. If this content is making sense to you, please hit that subscribe button and activate the notification bell. Thanks for your support. Have you ever noticed that no matter how painful this relationship is, there are moments when everything seems perfect? Those rare instances when the other person is exactly who you want them to be. When it feels like everything is finally going to change, you cling to those moments, reliving every detail, convincing yourself that this is the true essence of the relationship and that the rest are just obstacles that can be overcome. But this isn't love. It's addiction. And what keeps this addiction alive is a powerful psychological phenomenon called intermittent reinforcement. The concept comes from B.F. Skinner's studies on behavior and conditioning. In experiments with animals, Skinner discovered that the most effective way to keep someone hooked on a habit was to reward them unpredictably. Instead of giving food every time a rat pressed a lever, scientists began to give food only occasionally, without a defined pattern. The result? The rats became obsessed. They pressed the lever repeatedly, desperate for the next reward, unable to stop. Now replace the rats with human beings and the lever with your relationship. It works the same way. If the other person were cruel all the time, leaving would be easy. But they give you small, random doses of affection, making you keep trying, always hoping for the next emotional reward. And the most perverse thing about this mechanism is that it trains you to accept less and less. In the beginning, you might have demanded respect, reciprocity, commitment, but after so many ups and downs, your standard changes. You start to accept crumbs because, deep down, you just want to relive those good moments. You convince yourself that if you try hard enough, if you're patient, if you change something about yourself, the other person will finally return to who they were at the beginning. But that is the trap. This relationship was never about love. It was about control. The toxic person, consciously or unconsciously, understood that keeping you trapped doesn't require constant affection, but rather the right dosage of warmth and coldness, enough to keep you trying. And that's why leaving hurts so much. Because it's not just the end of a relationship, it's the end of hope. The end of the possibility that everything will change one day, and accepting that is painful but necessary. Because as long as you keep playing this game, your identity will dissolve. You will lose sight of what you deserve. You will start to doubt yourself. You will be slowly conditioned to accept less, to expect less to be. And the worst part is that, often, the other person still makes you believe that the fault is yours, that you're exaggerating, that none of this is really happening. And if you have ever found yourself questioning your own sanity, feeling that maybe it's all in your head, then you need to understand the next concept: gaslighting, projection, and emotional manipulation, the psychological weapons that destroy your perception of reality. If you've ever found yourself asking, "Am I exaggerating the problem? Maybe I'm going crazy," then you've already felt the effects of psychological manipulation. And among all forms of manipulation, few are as devastating as gaslighting. Gaslighting is when someone distorts reality to the point of making you doubt your own feelings, memories, and even your sanity. It is an extremely effective control technique because it puts you in a constant state of doubt, making it harder to recognize the abuse and even harder to escape from it. Here's how it works. You notice something wrong in the relationship, perhaps a strange behavior, a contradiction, a lie, and confront the other person. But instead of taking responsibility, they flip the situation. They accuse you of exaggeration, paranoia, of creating problems where none exist. Phrases like "you always misunderstand everything," "Wow, you're so sensitive," "that never happened," Your imagining things start to become common. Over time, you begin to doubt yourself. You replay conversations in your head, try to remember details, seek evidence, validate your feelings. But with each new confrontation, the distortion of reality intensifies. What once seemed obvious now feels uncertain. And the more you doubt your own perception, the more dependent you become on the other person to define what is real and what is not. Gaslighting is just one of the tools used in toxic relationships. Another powerful weapon is projection. Here, the person transfers their own flaws and behaviors onto you. If they lie, they accuse you of being dishonest. If they're unfaithful, they accuse you of cheating. If they're aggressive, they say you're the one provoking them. And the victim begins to believe these accusations, taking on guilt that isn't theirs and carrying an emotional burden they should never have to bear. The goal of these manipulations is not just to deflect responsibility, but to put you in a state of confusion and emotional exhaustion. Because when you are emotionally drained, it becomes easier to control you. When your self-esteem is shattered, you accept any crumbs of affection as a reward. When your perception of reality has been altered, you stop trusting yourself and start trusting the other person blindly. And this leads us to an even deeper question. Why do you continue to accept all of this? If it is already so clear that this relationship is destroying you, why is the fear of leaving still so great? Have you ever found yourself thinking, but what if I never find another person? Or what if no one else loves me? Have you ever caught yourself believing that if you just try a little harder, have a bit more patience, or change something about yourself, maybe this relationship will finally work? If so, then you have been a victim of one of the biggest factors that keep people trapped in toxic relationships: the fear of loneliness and the illusion of change. The fear of loneliness is not irrational. It has deep roots in our psyche. Since childhood, we are taught that being alone is a bad thing, something to be avoided at all costs. Society reinforces this all the time. Movies, songs, social media, everything tells us that being loved is our ultimate goal. As if being single is a failure. As if not having someone is proof that something is wrong with you. Now combine that fear with a relationship that has destroyed your self-esteem. A relationship where you were conditioned to believe that no one else would understand you, that no one else would accept you the way this person does, that no one else would love you like this. The result? You convince yourself that leaving would be a mistake, that it would be better to endure what is bad than to risk being alone. But what if I told you that what you're feeling is not fear of loneliness, that what you are actually feeling is emotional withdrawal? Toxic relationships create a state of dependency similar to addiction. You're not just attached to the person, you're trapped by hope. You remember the person they were at the beginning, those moments when everything seemed perfect, and you believe that if you just hold on a little longer, that version of them will return. You rationalize the bad moments, justifying them as temporary phases. You cling to empty promises, sweet words spoken at the right moments, and ignore the reality of their actions. This is not love. This is the illusion of change. The problem is that real change does not happen because you want it to. It doesn't happen because you love enough. It doesn't happen because you have sacrificed yourself to the point of having nothing left. True change only happens when the person recognizes the problem and has a genuine desire to transform. And let's be honest, how many times has this person promised to change? How many times have you heard excuses? How many times have you believed that this time would be different? If nothing changes, it's because this relationship was never meant to change. And accepting that hurts. It hurts because it means giving up hope. It hurts because it means facing the emptiness left by something that consumed so much of your life. It hurts because it means admitting that you invested time, energy, and love in something that never had a future. But this pain is temporary. The pain of continuing is eternal. But leaving a toxic relationship is not just about deciding to walk away. If it were that simple, you would have done it already. To truly leave, you need to break the emotional bond, reprogram your mind, and rebuild your identity. And that is exactly what we will talk about next. How to break the cycle and start the process of emotional detoxification. Have you ever noticed that even knowing that this relationship is destroying you, something inside you still hesitates? Even when the pain becomes unbearable, there's still that voice saying, "What if I'm making a mistake?" Or, "What if I never feel something like this again?" This happens because leaving a toxic relationship is not just a rational decision. It's not enough to understand that this relationship is harmful. You need to reprogram the way your brain associates love, validation, and even your own identity. You need to go through a true process of emotional detoxification. Yes, detoxification, because this relationship functioned like a drug. Every little dose of affection was a reinforcement to keep you trapped. Every moment of hope was an addictive stimulus. And now, just like with an addiction, you need to cut this cycle definitively to regain your freedom. But how do you do that? How do you finally break this bond that seems unbreakable? If you want to truly heal, you cannot maintain contact. And that means no messages, no calls, no "let's stay friends." Any contact you have with this person reactivates the emotional conditioning and pulls you back into the spiral of confusion. You might think, but what if he or she changes? What if they realize they lost me? But here's the truth. If this person were capable of changing, they would have already done it. If they truly valued you, they wouldn't have brought you to this point. What they feel is not regret. It's fear of losing control over you. And maybe you think, "But I just want closure." You don't need that. You already know everything you need to know. The closure you want is not an answer. It's a last reason to stay. So cut it all. Everything. Block them on your phone. Leave social media. Don't accept crumbs. And get ready. Because when you finally do this, the emotional withdrawal will hit hard. In the first few days, you will feel an emptiness. Your brain has been conditioned to seek this person to feel complete, so their absence may seem unbearable. But this is not longing, it's withdrawal. The problem is that your brain will try to convince you to go back. You will only remember the good moments, forget the suffering, and think, "Maybe I overreacted." But that's just your addiction trying to pull you back. The best way to get through this phase is to replace the old pattern with a new one. Fill that emptiness with something else. Get into a routine that keeps you busy. Exercise. Read. Hang out with friends who make you feel good. And above all, don't romanticize the past. Make a list of everything this person did to hurt you and reread it whenever you feel like going back. Toxic relationships destroy self-esteem. You've gotten used to seeing yourself through the eyes of the other. You were taught to believe that you are not enough, that you will never be truly loved, that you need to change to be accepted. Now it's time to reprogram yourself. You need to ask yourself, who was I before this relationship? What did I like? What made me happy? What did I abandon to fit into this relationship? Recovering means rediscovering yourself. It means finding your voice, your desires, your autonomy again. You don't need a relationship to be whole. This idea was planted in your head by a society that profits from your insecurity. But the truth is that the love that truly matters, and the only one that can heal you, is self-love. And that's exactly what we will talk about now. Because leaving a toxic relationship is not the end. It's the beginning of something much greater. And true liberation only happens when you finally choose yourself. There comes a moment when you need to make a decision. Continue destroying yourself in the name of a love that was never real, or finally choose yourself. Because in the end, it doesn't matter what the other person feels. It doesn't matter what they promised. It doesn't matter how many times they said they would change. What really matters is what you accept for your life. And maybe at this moment, you still feel doubt. Maybe that voice inside you is still saying, "But what if it's different? What if I'm exaggerating? What if I never find someone else?" That voice is not yours. It was implanted over time. reinforced by every crumb of affection you were made to accept, by every cycle of manipulation that destroyed your self-confidence, by every time you put your own well-being second to please someone who never truly cared about you. But now you know, now you see, you have a choice, and I need to be direct with you. No one is going to save you. No answer will come out of nowhere. No divine revelation will free you from this cycle. Either you make this decision, or you keep repeating this pattern until there's nothing left of you, because that is the fate of those who remain in a toxic relationship. An emotional exhaustion so great that you completely lose yourself. You stop knowing who you are, what you like, what you want. You reduce yourself to a secondary role in someone else's life. And when you realize this, it may be too late. So stop. Choose to leave. Choose to break the cycle. Choose to rebuild yourself. And don't think that this means it will be easy. On the contrary, the first days will be the hardest. You will miss them. You will want to go back. You will question if you did the right thing. But over time, something incredible will happen. The fog will start to lift. Your mind will become clearer. You will realize that what you thought was love was never love. You will remember who you were before this relationship. And then, one day, without warning, you will wake up and realize that you are finally free. But to get there, you need to take the first step. You need to make this choice now. And I want to know, what affected you the most in this video? What part made you see something that perhaps wasn't so clear before? Leave it in the comments, because your experience can help others who are going through exactly what you went through. And more importantly, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you never miss new content that could change your life. If you made it this far, you're already on the path to healing. Trust yourself. You deserve better, and you can create a life filled with real love, starting with loving yourself.